We start with some good news for a change. We all need that, right? So Eskom says the current spate of rolling power cuts should come to an end by the end of next week. The power utilities executives have been taking President Cyril Ramaphosa and other cabinet ministers on a tour of the Tutuka power station today. Let's find out exactly what happened there. I'm joined now by ENCA's Pule Lechuti-Jones, who joins us from Mpumalanga. Pule, good afternoon. So it would seem we have some light at the end of a long tunnel that we've been through of load shedding over the last few weeks, at least a month or so, of rolling power cuts at various stages. What exactly did President Ramaphosa say about the prospect of load shedding being suspended, albeit temporarily, towards the end of this week, of the coming week?
Yeah, well, Tulas is vowed to pursue, economic reform plans to secure reliable supply of sustainable energy as well. And of course, this comes in weeks of what we've been going through as a country in terms of the bad load-shedding crisis that has also not only impacted the people of the country, but businesses as well, and the economy at large. And now we're at the Tutuka power station in Mpumalanga, which has a generational capacity of about 3,654 megawatts as well, which is quite a bulk of supply. But most importantly, this is one power station that has also been riddled by a lot of challenges, which includes corruption and fraud. This is something that the president has also announced as well. But he's also been made aware that there's quite an urgency that has to be done in terms of dealing with this issue of the energy crisis in the country. Remember, just earlier this week in his newsletter, he spoke about how government had to boldly address the issue of load shedding, and that to also make an announcement in a few days as to what kind of urgent plans will be put in place to ensure that the issue of power cuts is addressed with urgency.
Towards the end of the coming week, we should emerge from load shedding. We have already lifted our indication for load shedding going forward. We've got a couple of big units returning, so that's positive news. Towards the end of July, the risk will be significantly diminished once Kuberg 2 comes back to the grid. That's about 920 megawatts, so that will bring a large measure of relief. But ultimately, to put load shedding to bed, what we need is additional capacity, because the system as it is at the moment is still unreliable and unpredictable.
So, Pule, despite many people asking for accountability of what it is that the president, his executive, as well as the leadership at Eskom have been doing since they came into office, it would seem that the president and other members of his leadership team continue to foreground the issue of state capture and corruption. What is he saying about that particular aspect and how it is going to be dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that cannot be, gone without address. It cannot be just go by without being addressed. But he's also mentioned that he's been made aware of some of the reports that has come his way as well by law enforcement agency. He's quite impressed with what he says has been accountability in terms of some officials who've been involved in state capture allegations linked to Eskom having to be prosecuted. He's still saying there should be room for ensuring that there is more arrests that are being made as well. But quite particularly with what has happened at the Tutuka power station and some of the power stations as well, he believes that the task team that has been established before, which of course includes the police minister Begikele, amongst others, will look vastly into the issue of what has been causing some of these sabotage, criminal activities at some of these power stations, and also ensuring that some of the recommendations on Eskom from the state capture reports are being implemented. It's one power state utility that's appeared numerously within some of the state capture reports, and therefore he's called for accountability. Perhaps we could just take a listen to what he had to say in terms of ensuring that people who are implicated are being dealt with as well.
With regards to the reports that I have received, that the Minister and myself and others have received about corruption and fraud, we're pleased that people are being arrested, and those who are involved in acts of corruption are now being arrested, and our law enforcement agencies have started work, and they are going to continue, and that is going to intensify because corruption and fraud and indeed state capture have diverted our intentions to bring about progress in our country. So we are going to be paying close attention to issues of corruption and fraud. Unfortunately, here, as we speak, already the word is out that yes, we're focusing on going after those who are corrupt and who are fraudulent as well.
Pule, invariably when you hear that something has gone wrong and there's generating capacity that has been lost, with the likelihood that Eskom will implement load shedding at short notice, as we know, Sikonathi Mantshantsha likes to warn us, to forewarn us before the blackouts actually get underway. The name of the power station, Tutuka, almost invariably comes up. So I'm just wondering what it is that the president was told about the state of this power station. What are the problems? What makes it to be at the heart of many of the problems that we experience from time to time? And I imagine that that assertion on my part is borne out by the president starting his oversight over the Eskom plant there. It would seem to suggest that it is central to many of the problems we experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you remember just 2 months ago when there was an Eskom briefing, the CEO, Andre de Ruyter, said this was one of the worst performing power stations in the country. And remember that there was an investigative piece that we did to us where a report that leaked showed that investigators who were commissioned by Eskom could identify that there was sabotage that had taken place here at the power station, meaning this is more of people who had inside information to how the power station had been operating, were behind some of the criminal activities that took place. That was according to that report, was commissioned by Biz Tracers as well. But secondly, there's also been allegations of how fuel has gone missing here at the power station as well. So you get to see the notorious criminal activities that have been taking place here, which has now caught not only the attention of the senior management at Eskom, but also to say government should have a right-hand approach is to come and see and pay oversight as to what is happening here. But central to that as well, hopefully this time around there will be some sense of accountability with the task team that has been established. I mean, the president's not new to the challenges that have been facing Eskom. He was once in the Eskom war room as well. So clearly he's got some insight of what has been happening at some of these power stations. And now it's just a matter of time for him to actually start getting the ball rolling and start, ensuring that issues of load shedding don't become a problem and don't blow up in the face of governments. These are things that have to be addressed while still early to us, and government and of course the president are quite confident that going forward they can ensure that they can fix the issues of power cuts. I don't know, just about 3 months ago in April, the Eskom senior management said we would face just about 101 days of load shedding. We haven't reached that part yet, and already they talk about the end of load shedding by the end of next week. Well, it remains to be seen, Tulas. We'll see what happens, and we'll be seeing what kind of solutions Eskom may be putting and what kind of future plans does government have. I mean, they're now talking about Eskom 2.0. These are just ambitious plans that they have, and hopefully we'll see what kind of progressions can be made in the next coming days.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that issue of what many are calling Eskom 2.0, Pule, because it segs nicely into my next conversation. ENCA's Pule Litwiti Jones out in Standerton in Mpumalanga.